Coming in at last is 2021. While every year this decade has been filled with great games, this is the only year where I can confidently say there were no masterpiece or genre-defining titles released. Now, I might only be saying this because this is the only year where I haven't played the Game of the Year winner, but due to crippling social anxiety, I most likely never will. However, 2021 is significant for me as it's the year that saw the release of two games that helped me kick my crack addiction. By crack, I mean live service titles. I used to go hard on Overwatch, but it was terrible for my mental health and burgeoning bank account, so I needed to find a replacement. That's where Hitman 3 and Monster Hunter Rise wandered into my life, with their hyper-addictive gameplay loop. That scratched the itch I had for collecting cosmetics and completing challenges, and these two are easily my most played games of the decade, although I sadly lost all my Hitman progress in a freak IO account syncing accident, and so I've had to retire it. Coming in at fourth is 2022, which is the unfortunate victim of being overshadowed by one title. But Elden Ring's dominance of the year is quite strange. There were multiple other high-profile releases that year, from God of War Ragnarok to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, there have been other years where games with a much higher profile than Elden Ring released, and their competition was still a dominant force in the Game of the Year conversation. But perhaps it's simply the sequelitis of all of Elden Ring's peers. God of War, Horizon, and Xenoblade are all building on games that came before, and none of them are a massive revolution on their formulas. Meanwhile, Elden Ring is a total reinvention of its predecessors, with an unmatched level of scale and depth. I wonder if Elden Ring simply released in another year if 2022 would look more glamorous on reflection, but for now it feels like it's only got one major pillar supporting it. In third is 2024, which similarly had no widely recognised genre-defining title released in it, but the titles that did release were some of the best installments that legendary franchises have ever seen. For me personally, last year had my favourite Final Fantasy, Sonic, and 2D Zelda games ever released, as well as the birth of several promising new franchises, such as Astro Bot, Metaphor, and Stellar Blade. In fact, if I was making this video based on the pure quality of games released, rather than the number of high-quality games released, then 2024 is my number one pick for the best year of the decade so far, as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Echoes of Wisdom are my number 1 and 2 favourite games of the decade so far. In second place is 2020, which felt like a culmination of so many highly anticipated releases all coming out in a 12-month period. What made this year so special, in terms of entertainment releases at least, was the distance between announcement and release of so many titles. Last of Us 2 was announced 4 years prior, Final Fantasy VII Remake 5, Ghost of Tsushima 3, and Cyberpunk 2077 a mind-boggling 8, though it certainly needed more time to cook. As well as landmark indie titles like Hades and Ori Will of the Wisps, and the cultural phenomenon that was Animal Crossing. 2020 was a year with so many iconic games, and it's ironic that many of 2025's highest profile releases are sequels to those titles. Ghost of Yotei, Doom the Dark Ages, Hades 2, and with the additional toppings of a Rockstar game, I would be utterly shocked if 2025 isn't the best year of the next 5. But 2020 was a special year for games, because then more than ever is when we all needed escape, and no matter what type of game you were into, there was something for everyone to sink their time into. Personally, those games were Doom and Final Fantasy for me, but that's only because New Zealand only had a 6-week lockdown for the entire year, and by the time we really lost control of the plague, Monster Hunter and Hitman were there to keep me sane. And coming in first to the shock of no one, 2023. Where to even begin? The thunderous resurrection of the CRPG genre with Baldur's Gate, the sequel to my favourite game of all time, a new 2D Mario made with a fervent passion and love of the weird, remakes of some of the best video games of all time, with Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, and Metroid Prime, the glorious return of Street Fighter reclaiming its throne atop the FGC, a spectacular Spider-Man game that was incredible from start to finish, Remedy hitting their stride and delivering far and away the best game they've ever made. And for me, a game that surpassed all of these titans and might genuinely not have a single significant flaw and is everything I could ever want from this industry, Hi-Fi Rush. But that's not even mentioning Phantom Liberty, Diablo 4, Pikmin 4, Final Fantasy XVI, and my personal proudest moment of the year, a single-player game surpassing Call of Duty for the best-selling game of the year, though I wish said game could have been higher quality. 2023 is easily an all-time year for gaming, on par with 2018, 2017, 2007, 2004, and 1998, and I truly hope that it's not the best year of the decade, because in order to restore some much-needed positivity to this space, we need some undeniable masterpieces, and we need them soon. I'll be back in 2 days. In the meantime, here's a video ranking every single game I played in 2024.